Kanpai!
You even had a drink. Oh my god, what is that tankard, Nasuth?
It's based on it's based on the ones from Deep Rock Galactic. That's where the little robot comes from too.
Oh my god! I just suddenly throw it over your shoulder. Oh my god.
Yep. It's great, isn't it? It's great. King did some amazing work.
Right.
That's why I'm commissioning him later. Well, welcome everybody to episode 78 of Kanpai Cast. This is our lovely little topic of AI makes better anime than you do. So we're going to have a lovely time here with Xenogelion, Nasuth, and JoeyZero joining us today as our special guest. And we were unable to get a fifth and miss her already. So let's move on with a little bit of housekeeping for this episode before we dig into this rather meaty little topic of ours. For example, did you know that there's a like button? Okay, right down there beneath this video. And there's also a dislike button. Apparently they both matter about the same to YouTube's algorithm, but we'd really appreciate it if you hit the like instead of the dislike. It's up to you though. There are also timestamps and chapters, but if you skip any part of this episode, you will be missing out. So that's pretty much all we've got for housekeeping. And I think we're just going to dive straight into our topic today, because it's kind of on the nose for everybody at the moment.
Yeah, so what inspired this controversial topic was the sheer fact that so many content creators out there now are talking about the corridor digital anime AI, or AI-based anime, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, and realistically a lot was being said that was aggravating me, and I was like, you know what, I'm a content creator, I can pitch my oar into this as well. So this would have been the final season review episode for winter 2022, like 3 even. Oh god. But I opted to do this. I asked if Joey, who we'll get into the background of in a minute with his experience in AI, as well as Yeeture, be able to join us. Unfortunately, Yi was not able to, because Yi has a very unique perspective. She trained as an animator as well as worked. She has a bachelor's degree in animation while having a master's degree in ontologies and things like this, which is part of the natural language processing of AI and stuff like that. But anyway, so what I wanted to do was briefly go around the room, so to speak, talking about what our experiences are with AI, and I'm more than happy to go first. So
please do.
My exposure to AI is I'm a web developer, AI by trade. AI is not a massive influence in the work that I do. It does exist, don't get me wrong. I see services flying around all the time with stuff like Copilot. If anyone's a web developer, you probably have heard of that in passing. Also stuff like ChatGPT and Midjourney. But part of my degree was to do with artificial intelligence, and I can say categorically, hands down, the term AI is being horribly misused in this stuff. So I will now hand over to, I'll open, like, whoever wants to go next, feel free to say what your experience with AI.
Nose goes.
Okay. I think Joey.
No, that's Nasuth. That's Nasuth.
Yay! So I don't personally have a lot of experience with AI. I've used a little bit of like DALL-E Mini and DALL-E 2, and a tiny bit of ChatGPT. Mostly what I know of it from is like past attempts at making chatbots that have gone horrifically wrong. And obviously there's the YouTuber CodeBullet, who does a lot of stuff with like learning algorithms and whatnot. but even he doesn't really call it AI. He calls it like algorithms and that sort of thing, because that's really what it is. It's not a true AI. It's just a set of really complicated learning algorithms. That's pretty much it. I don't have any personal experience making one, or I don't know the ins and outs of the deeper stuff. Yeah. I still know that they're not AIs though. It's a nice shorthand, but it's not accurate.
Okay, and then out of the remaining two?
Let's go with Joey for the next one, because we brought him on for a reason.
All right. So I am also as a day job, I am also do the web developer things. I'm actually Xeno's boss.
You are such a dick.
You've risen quick through that company.
I do the web developer things. I also am like I've had an interest in chatbots and stuff for quite a long time. I've built a couple of chatbot things for Twitch and for Twitch streams and stuff. Most recently was an OpenAI powered conversational chatbot that was the intent was to build something that was highly personality driven, as opposed to just giving the bog standard answers that ChatGPT gives, where I am a language model trained on a large set of anyway. That really irritates me. Beyond that, I also, if anyone's not familiar, I also have a YouTube channel, shameless plug, youtube.com/JoeyZero, and I've kind of messed around with AI art, or rather generative art on there a little bit. Same on TikTok and stuff. It's more just kind of throwing ideas out there, because the state of it whenever I was kind of interacting with the generative art stuff, it's still definitely, I think people that want to make content with it generally are still waiting for some developments to be made. Those developments, I think in large part having just been made by Corridor Digital when they released that video, but whatever. Prior to doing the web developer things, I was a freelance creative. So honestly, a lot of what I was doing prior to working with the code things was doing the creative things, making videos and a bunch of other stuff. But I think it's really interesting to me how much of what I was doing 2 or 3 years ago can now be completely automated. I think that's insane to me. But that's my perspective. It's Thaylien's turn now.
Yeah, thank
you for that. So I'm coming at this from a slightly weird perspective. I used AI art generation for the first time literally yesterday as of recording for April 1st. The little generation of a concept art for an April Fool's. And what surprised me so much was how easy it was. And of course how terrible it was. But so my background in any of this is I am a self-taught artist. I've come up learning anatomy, learning digital sketching techniques, and I've literally taken pride in the act of learning how to create art the best I can for the last 17 years. Because I didn't start the same kind of age most people did. I started a little bit later. And so seeing a lot of the process of how you learn, how you develop a style, how you have to work through things, does give me a lot of opinionation and bias on this topic. So I'm going to try not to interrupt anybody.
Okay, right. So, I don't know if Nasuth can, right? But actually, no. We'll do it.
I suppose I should probably actually switch over to the small now that we've.
Why is that?
Why is it on Japan?
I don't know. I'll fix it in background. But regardless,
we're professionals.
So my first question to all of you is: are you for the use? This is a carpet question. This is a horribly asked question. Yay! So say aye if you are for the use of AI in the production of anime.
Aye. Especially for like backgrounds and stuff. I know that's taking jobs away from background artists.
No caveats. Blanket statement.
Sorry, no caveats.
Right.
Yeah.
And those who are against it say nay. Okay. I don't know if Joey actually...
Wait, is Joey muted?
Oh, Joey, I think your mic's... Technical difficulties. Soon into starting.
So I said aye the first time, and then I also said nay. Because you didn't say that I couldn't say both. But... yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so... I think a large thing for me, right, is that realistically, AI should be used as an assistant, right? It shouldn't be used as a replacement. Let's talk about the capitalist side of things later, but realistically, AI can't do a perfect job. AI doesn't have the correction, the algorithms that exist. Right, the current tools that exist do not have the ability to interpret images correctly. Don't have the ability to.
They still get fingers wrong.
They can't perceive.
Yeah, they can't perceive anything. Well, I mean, these algorithms definitely.
They can observe. They can't perceive. They can't understand.
Yeah. Right. So when we put into services like DALL-E or Midjourney or Stable Diffusion or anything like that, a lot of the problem comes down to the fact that it doesn't truly know what an eye is, right?
Yeah.
It Googles all these different things like, oh, give me images of eyes, right? And then, it has a general, this is eye, right? This is an eye. This is every eye. But that's it. It doesn't have a best concept of how an eye looks.
It has no... there is no deep thinking at all. There's no contemplation of what both an eye actually looks like in a real person.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't know what a real person is, nor does it have a concept of what it means metaphorically.
Go on, Joey.
Yeah, I have a counterpoint that I think is important to consider for the sake of setting the tone of this conversation.
Go on then.
And that is that currently these algorithms, shall we say, they have an incomplete understanding of what they're making, they're like generating some art for. But at one point, cameras were black and white.
Yeah,
right?
This
technology will get better. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And like at some point, you will be able to I don't know, type eye into Midjourney, and it'll like understand what an eye is. Maybe not not Midjourney specifically, but
that's a bold statement.
It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Because I would say that's a bold statement because when I was using the term understanding, I meant in the way of an actual intelligence. When you say artificial intelligence in this sense is being used in the wrong way, it really is, because it's not actually an artificial intelligence. It can't, even no matter how good it gets, understand. It'll just get the ability to be more accurate with what it's observing.
I'm kind of this. I understand where you're coming from, and I think that's a valid point, but like
the algorithms will be more refined in what they produce rather than understanding what they produce per se.
To that same thing. And again, this is probably a lot more complicated than what we can arrive at an answer for in in like one podcast, but like
Mhm.
I would argue, Thaylien, that how do you understand what an eye is, or how do you understand what your eye looks like, and then along with that, how might your understanding differ from mine, and along with that, is it possible that an algorithm could have an understanding with a lower margin of error than like what one person to another might have, like an understanding that one person or another might
Yeah,
have
that's
of an eye?
exactly. I can actually answer that kind of question in a sense, because that is a very key difference between what even an artificial intelligence would be and what we are. Because when you say, is your understanding of an eye, that's exactly it. It is completely unique to the person. You know, a person born without the ability to see, for example, wouldn't have the same idea of what their eye is compared to any of us who can see. You know, I can feel my eye. I can have the sensation of it if I really pay attention, of blinking, of irritation if something gets in it. All these things contribute to my experience of it in ways that even an artificial intelligence wouldn't be able to do, let alone an algorithm.
I agree, but I will also argue that like one human can model another person's understanding of an eye. Maybe not exactly, but like
Yes,
you can imagine what it would be like to be blind, and that may not. Yeah,
but that's again because as another human with an eye, you have your own understanding of what that is.
Well,
it's a very small degree of separation to model somebody else's because you already have your own. You have a base.
That's the thing. There are people that were born without eyes. I was born with eyes, and I don't know what it's like to not have eyes, or to be born blind. But so like it's surprising to a lot of people, I guess, or it was to me in like middle school or whatever. But it's surprising to a lot of people to consider that like a blind person doesn't see darkness; they just don't see it all, right?
Exactly.
So it's not like closing your eyes, which is like
actually, that good example. Good example. If you only close one eye, you don't see darkness out of that eye. You only see what's out of the other eye, the one that's open. Your brain literally shuts it off. And so you don't see it. But if you close both eyes, you can see the darkness.
Not mine.
I think. Okay,
Really?
maybe not Nasuth's, right? But
Yeah,
I think there's a big realization that's being missed here, and that's the interpretation of the information. For example, if you were to turn to an algorithm that focuses primarily on natural language processing, and you ask it, what is an eye? It will come back with some natural language response. If you were to turn to an image generation algorithm, it will give you a picture of an eye, right? The big thing behind artificial intelligence is how to interpret that information to something that either individual wants to relay. Like, it could be, I will tell you about the biological aspects of it. I will tell you about the physical aspects of it. I will draw you a pretty picture, right? I will tell you some poems about the eye. It's all about conceptual understanding. And as you both have pointed out, it's all a unique perspective. But the problem with these algorithms is they can't have a perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can only have positive or negative feedback on what they produce.
No, they just have information. That is
a
it.
sample set.
Well, that's what I mean. The positive or negative feedback is there is more information that they get that they then add to their next generation of images, etc., etc.
I would argue that it's not that they can't have a perspective. It's that they are limited to a perspective that is the average of the data that they've been fed. Yeah. Which is not to say that that's not a perspective at all.
I suppose, but the problem is that they can't derive anything from it. I mean, so I openly admit I've been using Midjourney as a form of conceptualizing a character, and in experimenting with Midjourney, I have realized that there are so many limitations towards it. A perfect example, the best example I can give to Midjourney is if I ask it to do a Guyver, and Joey, you even played with this, it hasn't got a clue what a Guyver is. It doesn't even know what a Guyver looks like, right? It comes up with either a Protoss from StarCraft or a Kamen Rider, right? It doesn't know what a Guyver looks like, right? And a lot, as you say, Joey, it's down to the data it has. But if it doesn't have any data, it doesn't turn around and say, I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it just feels something in any way.
I was talking with with a coworker the other day that like the term for that, as far as like generative algorithms goes, is hallucination.
Yes.
So it doesn't know, so it just guesses, right? But I think that so like what you've just kind of illustrated is a really good. I think that works really well to illustrate Thaylien's point as well, which is that like kind of like a lack of like functional understanding or lack of like first-hand understanding. So for example, with Midjourney specifically has gotten a lot better at doing hands, but it was such a meme for such a long time that if Midjourney generated a picture for you with a hand in it, it would have some kind of weird like grabber claw with 13 fingers. Because it understood like vaguely what hands should look like. It understood
Where they
that there would be like creases in the skin for fingers and stuff, but none of that, like none of the data that it had been given had stressed any importance of the fact that there are 5 fingers on a hand.
You
right?
also get a
or
lot
like
of
how many joints should be on a finger.
Blends into the skin itself, which is really creepy.
Yeah. There was the same thing, I guess, whenever there was some other generative thing. I want to say it was DALL-E, but it was a couple years ago. There was the same thing around generative images of cats, where like you could tell this algorithm to generate a picture of a dog, and generally it would create a picture of a dog. You would tell it to generate a picture of a cat, and because the average, like there was so much difference between like the positions that a cat could be in, because they were so much more flexible, like you would just get this like fur monstrosity. And
there's a fair description of a cat though.
Didn't they also have like 6 eyes, 3 noses, and 3 tails? And things? Because they were always grouped in 3s whenever they were shown. Like, this is a cat, and it was like, so cats always have 6 eyes. I'm like, no. This is 3 cats. This isn't 1 cat. This is 3. And again, it was like misunderstanding of the information.
Very similarly, when I was trying to create an image using DALL-E 2 for the last episode of Notice Me Senpai that came out, the April Fool's one, and so I was trying to create My Little Pony Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it got it mostly right, but every time the faces were weird, or it would have arms coming out of the arms, or just the weirdest stuff. It took forever to find an image that was like close to what I wanted. It just didn't understand.
One other thing that I will point out is that both like training, so like training up a custom model with something like Dream Booth. I don't know if any of you have messed around with that.
No.
That is so basically you can. It's an algorithm that you can kind of like use in conjunction with other algorithms, not Midjourney and not DALL-E, but like other stuff. You can give it some images like of a person and say, hey, this person is so and so. Corridor Digital also did a video about this as well.
Yeah.
But you can give it images, like several images of a person, stipulate like a term for that person, and then say like, a picture of so and of this person at the beach, and then it'll like come up with an image, because it then has seen enough examples of that person to kind of approximate what they would look like. So training is a thing, and context is also a thing. So context basically being whenever you send like a prompt to DALL-E or to Midjourney or something, for example, Midjourney has no understanding of like what I look like, right? But in including pictures of myself along with prompts, it takes some playing around, but you can reliably get a picture that looks like you, right? And I think that that's not, how do I put this? That's not to say that I don't want to kind of I don't want to like present this in a way that seems like it's going against what Thaylien said, because it's not. But like it doesn't have so talking about like an understanding of a concept that a generative algorithm would make something of. I think that they kind of can develop something like an understanding of something, at least relative to whatever the function, the task is that you give it.
Yeah.
But it's not, so I would agree that it's not unique, and I would agree that it is very limited. But also, along that same line, the context window, as in like the amount of images that you can send, which there's not really an image generation thing that will allow you to send like a ton of images, but, or I mean, there's Dreambooth, whatever. The amount of additional context that you can give and the ease with which you can train new models that are like specific to a certain task that like know this face and can put it into a picture. That is getting easier like every day almost. To the point that like a month ago, we were on like GPT-3. I think they had just switched GPT over to GPT 3.5. Which was mostly for performance, but then they created GPT-4, which was like orders of magnitude more data that you could send. And those developments are getting faster, and they're kind of increasing the amount of stuff that you can send all at once. So along that, like right now, you can't go to Midjourney and type in something in Midjourney, have Midjourney literally Google it, but at some point, like it could probably happen. So at that point, like Midjourney could reasonably develop like a generative image or an image generation algorithm could reasonably establish just as well of an understanding of something visually as a person could if they were to. I mean, now, again, that doesn't take into account like the ability to feel stuff. That doesn't take into account the ability to like imagine what like what Thaylien said, to imagine like this, you got something stuck in your eye.
Well,
but
I mean,
like I've never seen Thaylien in real life, but I could probably like sketch my interpretation of him, right? Because I've seen pictures of him at however many frames per second. But
so no, my thing with that is think about it this way: any algorithm that's learning from pictures of, say, a face, right? They did this in Corridor Digital as well, which, you know, it's great they went into it. They wanted to do the style of the old anime Vampire Hunter D, but of course no character in that has a beard. So they basically had to pick the best versions of the person they were rendering with the best version of his beard and feed those back into the sample set, so that it would actually be able to pick up those and learn that they wanted this person to have a beard. Right?
And even then, it kind of came out crazy for a while.
Yeah, it came out very crazy for a while. So you think of it that way. Where a machine can learn what a face looks like, what an eye looks like, but it will never know, it'll never be able to tell that an eye is actually a ball inside the socket. It will just have the 2D face. From multiple angles, yes, but it will still just have the 2D face. It won't know that there's an internal structure there.
In the interest of not constantly repeating ourselves, because I feel like we've come to a healthy conclusion of what an AI is and, you know, how these algorithms are doing the jobs and everything. Unless anyone has any final points they want to raise, I'd kind of like to move on to what our takes are on the Corridor Digital video, because we brought it up a few times now.
Yes.
I just for the sake of clarity, I just want to say, because I don't think I've said yet, I think AI is really cool. I think that a lot of what can be done with some of these like some of this generative like tech that's out there is really awesome. But I don't at any point, I want to be super careful about this. I don't at any point want to, I guess, give the impression that, I don't know, there are a lot of people out there that are like again, they're under the impression that like ChatGPT has feelings, right?
Ah.
Or that like, you know what I mean? Like I want
ChatGPT
to
is my
be
new
as careful as I
girlfriend.
can, because like the more that like people talk it up, and they can be careful about their language, but the more that people talk it up, the more I think that the people that are out there that like want ChatGPT to be their girlfriend will like hear that, and then it'll like
Yeah.
reinforce that. And I want to be careful. I want to be clear about that. I want to be as explicit as I can. It's not people. It's not. It doesn't. There's no
It's not a
sentience
true
there yet.
AI, therefore it can't.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do think it's awesome. So,
yeah.
It can
Let's-
approximate what, you know, like based on scripts it's read about love stories. It can, you know, approximate what a character in one of those
Nasuth.
might say, but not very
Nasuth,
well.
You wish. Oh, the thing is dumb as bricks. But let's move on.
It can
Let's-
pretend to
let's
know.
Okay.
Take a look at this particular video that sparked it,
Right.
which is
So
Corridor Digital.
right, Corridor Digital's Rock Paper Scissors Anime Edition, whatever. I can't remember what its full title is. Right. Going backwards in the experience order, Thaylien, what was your take on it?
I really liked the concept of what they were doing. I loved how much innovation they actually managed to put into this.
Mhm.
So they discovering new tricks for making this thing happen. From a completely detached point of view, that is exactly what humanity's been doing for centuries now. And you know, we want to do something. There are these obstacles in the way. We develop a tool. We do it. For small-time studios, small independent studios, this kind of thing will work really well. It'll do wonders for them, and you know, you will actually find that just knowing that this is available will make a whole load of projects much easier to turn out. On the other side of that, impression, I'm still a little worried, because despite the amount of human involvement in that, you need the actors, you need the models, you need the actual techniques, you need some skill at actual video editing to develop this. Despite that, I can already see corporations rubbing their hands with glee over this.
Okay.
The idea that they won't even need to fully pay actors anymore, that they can just budget this whole process.
I think we can come back to the capitalization of this afterwards, but let's keep it in view of just the video itself. Joey?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that the work that they put forward in that video, I think it was pretty groundbreaking in that like no one had made anything that kind of high profile, or that had gotten that much traction prior to that. I'm glad to see that it has sparked so much conversation. I'm a little disappointed that no one has tried to use video compression to to freeze certain parts of, say, like background footage and stuff like that, because there's I don't know, whatever. But I mean, I think they did it well. I also think that there is an easier way to do similar things. But I don't know. I can't talk because I haven't done it either. So, I think it was a really interesting watch. I think that if the same tools and everything that they used became a lot more commonplace, I think it'd be really empowering for anyone that has a story to tell. Or it could be really empowering for anyone that has a story to tell. That's a separate thing, and I think that to what you just said, I think that yes, I think that I don't know. We'll get into that with the capitalization of it stuff. But I think it was great. I think it was like pretty groundbreaking, and I'm excited to see what comes of it. Mostly, well, again, we'll get into that stuff later. But yeah,
Nasuth?
Yeah, completely agree.
Clearly, I'm going to echo some of their views. I think it was indeed incredibly groundbreaking. The sheer amount of effort that they put in. It's a really good first step, but I think it's only a first step because if you really watch it, there are still some janky parts. I felt like the mouths were always a little bit off, and part of that's because they had to when they were making the images for it to use, they had to like really over exaggerate their mouths for it to actually pick up on what they were doing. They had to
correct you there.
Sorry, yes, go ahead.
They chose to over embellish the mouth action. That was a
I thought that might have been it. Yeah. But it still seems really weird in the end product.
Yeah, think about it this way, Nasuth. They were
trying to do the anime
lip-syncing
style.
their own already recorded dialogue, so there's always going to be slight timing differences there.
Well, but they were also trying to do the anime style, so they were. That's why they were doing the
anime style.
Yeah,
and there was also frames being removed specifically.
Yeah.
So some of the timing will have been off. The lip flap will not have been quite accurate.
They managed to clean up like a lot of the shading issues and the fact that it would like throw in a really light frame or whatever, but there were still some weird shading issues going on. It looked a little more cell shaded, which is okay, but also kind of maybe rotoscoped. I don't know, one of the two. It looked a little weirder than even the style they were going for with Vampire Hunter D. But they had to put in a lot of training images and stuff, which is like almost an exorbitant amount for anyone who's not part of a studio. But again, first step, not a bad first step. In the future, I could see them refining some of this stuff, making it easier. It's an interesting. You're definitely not going to be able to stop this sort of thing from happening. So I would love to see how it evolves to become more of a tool for anyone to use, ideally. Yeah.
So my take on it is that it's echoing everything you guys have said. I don't need to repeat that.
Yeah.
There are obviously points of jank, right? There's no way that they could get around that with the first attempt, right? I would have loved it if they could have done something to remove the micro movements. So, for example, when a person stands still in a live action, there's breathing movements. They can't hold their arm out perfectly still and things like that. It would have been cool if they'd put in the extra time to sort of like, I don't think stabilize is the right term, but effectively
and smoothen.
Yeah, so what you're discussing or what you're talking about is a problem that they brought up in the beginning, which is that like initially everything was like way too crazy from one frame to the other, and there was still some of that, and they touched on what their approach was to solving it, which I don't think was a complete solution. But I will say, it is just a matter of somebody sitting down and writing the code to do it. Like the rest of the technology and stuff is there, but that's the video compression thing I was talking about. So like, for example, like they green screened the backgrounds behind their characters, and then they just ran like the footage with the green screen through was it Resolve or was it? I think it was Resolve. But they so that way like the characters were there, but like also again like you said from like over a series of frames, you may see their clothes change a little bit. You may see some lines kind of jump around a little bit between frames. And that's just kind of that is kind of a nature of the beast a little bit with that, but also like that same data about like, hey, these pixels, if they're not, the person's not standing still, so maybe just move the pixels a little bit rather than like redrawing them. That's something that is built into like a lot of the video compression that is kind of like in place that a lot of video platforms and stuff use. What P frames, B frames, and
I think it's just P and B.
No, there's another one.
Yeah.
Hi.
There's another one that iframes. Maybe
no,
I'm thinking
no
games.
dodge
No.
rolling, Nasuth.
Yeah.
I'll look it up later if you want. But that's like duplicating p frames and stuff, or like chopping out b frames. That's how they do like data moshing and stuff. Which again, it's all just compression. It's all just like the way that the video is compressed. So anyway, I'll shut up now. That's not what the conversation that any of us signed up to have.
No, I very much like it. I very much like the whole segregation of everything. The way that they separated out the backgrounds, the animations, the wave lines, the how they acted out the performance. I liked a lot of it. I do not like how much shade they have been thrown from other content creators, especially how poorly put together that shade has been.
What are people saying? Is it like, oh, you're taking stuff from real artists or something? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the big one, right? The biggest shade that nearly everyone has said is that this is plagiarism, right?
What?
Now, I'm going to ask you guys, do you know what the definition of plagiarism is?
Isn't it like lifted whole without attribution? Like you just take something and you don't attribute it properly, and you just use it in whole, and you don't. Yeah.
So the definition is the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the idea is that they plagiarized the art style. But they said
they
where
told
the hell
you.
they got it from.
Yeah! And it's not like they didn't directly rip cells from
fully...
the movie. They had they used it as inspiration for the AI. None of those scenes were exactly like, oh my god.
So I think this is one of the things where like culturally we are kind of struggling to keep up with the pace that the technology is moving. And by that I mean if you rely on like the legal definition of how to deal with copyright, right? Yeah. Like that doesn't. There's no way that like there has been policy implemented since these technologies came about that deals with that. I mean, like the lawmakers are still kind of trying to wrap their heads around like the copyright issues that like the '90s brought. Right, like with Metallica getting their music cut off in the middle of the BlizzCon stream, and like just played like some generic chiptune music or whatever. Like that, those are ramifications that like nobody could have foreseen when those decisions were made. And I think that again, like with that in mind, copyright and stuff tends to be a little bit of a murky subject for a lot of people anyway. Saying that to say that like you can make something that is entirely yours, but is like inspired by something else, like something that is like legally yours that you could take to court and say like, yes, I made this myself, that takes inspiration from something else, but somebody else might listen to it and say you totally ripped off that other thing.
Yes. If I can interject, there is a lot of discussion to be had on that, but in this particular case, when we're talking about the Corridor Digital video, this is as much plagiarism as celebrating Chinese New Year in America when you're white is cultural appropriation.
Whoa.
Okay? It's not, because they fully attributed the thing. And, Chinese New Year is not something that is exclusive to the Chinese people either. So it's, there's a whole thing to be said about application. There are some things that people do with AI that is plagiarism, where they've used a tiny sample set to generate something that is very much a copy of the thing they wanted, but different enough that it's like Adidas versus Adidas. That's the thing. But it can't be in this case because they have actually gone through the whole process of attribution and citing all of their sources, so it can't be plagiarism in this case.
So, but this has been like one of the biggest bugbears I have had, because there are services out there. Unfortunately, Midjourney is one of them that goes along and takes art from platforms like DeviantArt and ArtStation and things to use it to add to its data set, even though people have turned around and said, like, I don't want that, it's still happening out there, right?
Fun facts: DeviantArt have now got it set to default that your page is not actually scraped by these bots
until they find a way around it. Until they find a way around it, which
yeah.
they will, which they 100% will.
They will, but it's basically so it does not flag it as available to the bots that are there.
Here's an argument that I have for this. Right. So first off, what both of you have said is accurate, and even the developers of Midjourney have turned around and said, we don't care about the fact that you've said you don't want us to scrape it. We're still going to scrape it, regardless of that. What's really interesting is the fact that it's the perspective of what. My question to you, because this is something I've never been able to get my head around. What is the problem of having a bot, right, an algorithm, able to replicate the art style of another person, right, loosely, when people have been doing this for thousands of years?
Fan art all the time that's done in the same style of X thing.
Not just that, you've got
or other
forgeries,
artists. Yeah.
right?
So, I know what the problem is. It is, bar none, the fact that in order to ask us as a society to be able to accommodate that, to be able to like understand that, like, okay, this picture kind of looks like this other one is the original, therefore the second, or the opposite of that. In order to ask us as a society to be able to understand that, you've got to ask a lot of people to bring their level of understanding up. And that's work. You're asking an entire culture of people to learn something. And while I think that would be great, I also think that that's a big ask.
So could you confirm?
I'll come at that.
No, hold on.
I'll come at that for. Okay.
No, I want to ask you from the artist's perspective as well, Thaylien. But I want to ask, Joey, can you confirm what is the ask to understand? What is the ask to, like, we need you to bring up your understanding, because I don't understand this.
So the big ask, right, is to and how do I put this? This is something that, so again, we don't really, as a culture, we don't really have a good, like, well-defined like outline of this, right? At the moment, what the ask is basically sit with yourself for a minute and try and figure out for yourself how close is too close. How close to the original image does it need to be before it's a ripoff? Or how far away does it need to be original? If one piece of art is inspired by another piece of art, is that art? Is it still art? Is it still a creative expression? Does it still, like, is it something? Because to everybody, if you study the Impressionist
masters, and then you try to make your own Impressionist painting,
Nasuth.
Is that ripping them off?
See, that is part of it.
I think the other side of that is that, again, there's a distinction, kind of like when like Nasuth just mentioned, like, Impressionist painting, right? There's kind of a distinction where, like, you can, like, how to put this, if you go out and you study, like, Impressionist artists, and then you make some Impressionist art, right? Like, that's one thing, right? But if you study one specific Impressionist artist and you try and replicate their art, that's not a definition of genre. That is, like, at that point, you're kind of, I would kind of argue that you are engaging in plagiarism a little bit. I've got a friend, I don't know if you guys, I know Xeno, I know you know her, but it's Armena. So she had a blog post once. There was something along the lines of, like, there is no such thing as original art. There is only honest art, right? And it was like one of the examples that was kind of gone into in this article was this guy was like this, like, world-class photographer, right? And, like, he was booked for he was a world-class artist. He was booked to like make an ad for like a whiskey company. And what he did was he took pictures of the bottle and then traced it and then used that to make the art. And he got some flack for that. And he was like, his response was like, should I have blown the glass for the bottle in order for this to be art? Or like, where's the line? And I think that the ask currently is to ask people individually to kind of evaluate that for themselves and come up with their own answer. But beyond that, the ask is to get us as a culture to agree to where that line is.
Okay.
I'd like to approach that from the other perspective. Okay, as somebody who's coming into this from the art perspective, it's a two-parter. On the one hand, it doesn't really matter how close it is. Okay, because the thing that matters to an artist from their work that they're being taken on, a photographer that they're being taken on, is whether or not the other person, the person doing this work and attributing it to them, is actually saying it's their own artwork, or whether they're saying it's inspired by this other person's artwork, whether it is in fact tracing of this other person's artwork that they've then iterated on. And this is the statement from our mate. There's only honest art. How honest is the person being about where they got this, how they came to this point, and whether they put in any of the work to actually make it.
And that's absolutely the thing. So, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
There's one more side of it. There's one more side of that. Thank you for agreeing. There's one more side to that, and that is whether the artist themselves feels that that's acceptable in the first place. Whether they want their art to be something that can be traced, attributed, or allowed
but if you
to
put it out in the public,
used in that way.
Do you have control over that anymore?
There is the question on that. There is the question of that, right? And this whole thing of the public domain was a big discussion on a thing, the SOPA, the Stop Online Piracy Act, which was a bill that was going to force people to actually register their copyright with an agency, a privately run agency. But it didn't allow for, well, it was full of holes, because the problem is that if you did not, and you went to use self-copyright, then, as if you weren't registered, people could just use your stuff at no cost. No, there was no problem with it. It just counted as you did not have a copyright at all under this situation. So the point of personal copyright at the moment is, even if you put it in the public domain, it is still yours.
Well,
So the reason being, there are in fact laws about things like, if you make a donation to a charity shop by dropping a bag of stuff outside the front door, until the charity shop picks that stuff up from your donation and processes it, it's still yours.
So
even if you drop it on the street. So yeah,
I've got one quick thing that I want to point out about this, and then I'll shut up on this one. For what it's worth, I'm putting most of this conversation in the context of music, just because I'm a lot more familiar with music copyright, and also like I've made a lot more music than I have like visual art. But I think as an artist, like you make something, and especially if you make something to like put out there, you want it to touch people, you want it to move people. Generally, you want to express something. And in order to be an expression of something, well, in order for an expression to meet its functional purpose, like it needs to be received by somebody, right? And with that in mind, like if you make something that moves somebody, right? I think that while I agree that it is down to it is important where like kind of the originator of that expression, I guess like what they intended. I would also argue that I don't think that any artist out there has really like considered what that means, like specifically enough for say like a legal definition. And by that, what I mean is that like if I write a song and I put it out there, like where's the line?
And I'm inspired by it.
Yeah, so like where's the line for that? As in like how far can Nasuth? What can Nasuth do with what he got from the song? Can he make another song that's inspired by it? Can he like play it for other people? Can he talk about it? Like,
but that's the two-part thing that I mentioned, is that you can only have it if you're honest about it. First is that first side of it is you have to do the correct attribution. You have to do the correct assessment of what level of attribution you've actually got to it. If you're making a remix, then it's a remix.
If I'm doing a cover or a remix, for sure, definitely attribute it. But what if I'm just inspired to do something in a similar style?
Yes, exactly. So as long as you're honest about that, that's the first part.
But why do I have to say anything about it? Why do I have to?
Well, because that's where the other part comes in. Because if you are, we're going to get onto this in the corporatism and monetization side of it. Because if the original person does not want you making money off of playing their song or doing that without attribution, you have to be honest about that as well.
But again, what if it's just in a similar style?
You have a responsibility to say, well, this style that I'm now doing was inspired by this style.
I will say
wait, if I do a rock song that's attributed or that's inspired by something like Elvis Presley, I have to now say, I was inspired by Elvis Presley when I made this song.
If asked, yes.
No.
Why not? Why not?
Nasuth.
Why not? Why would you not?
You're asking why would I? Like, I guess what you're asking is like, what measures are in place to make sure that I don't?
Okay, maybe Thaylien's right about if I'm asked, but why would I put it out there voluntarily? Why would I not just say?
Because I can tell you from experience, at some point, it's going to be easier to be outspoken than it is to get called out.
If you don't mind, one thing I can see where Nasuth is coming from. I feel the big thing is, like, as human beings, as people with sentience, we are inspired by anything and everything we experience, right? Not just by one artist. And one could say, like, oh, you were inspired by Elvis Presley. It's like, no, never heard a single Elvis Presley song. It's like, bullshit, you've never heard. It becomes...
If you're honest about that, If you're honest about that, you've never heard of them, then, or you've never heard a song by them, then you can say it.
But they're not going to believe you.
The whole as Thaylien, as Nasuth just said, like, who says that they're going to believe you? Right? You have never heard an Elvis Presley song in your entire life. This
their ignorance doesn't change your truth.
Yeah, but I'm still in the same hot water from a public perspective.
Okay, I'm not quite sure what was just said because so many people are talking over each other.
Sorry.
What was just said?
Well, Naz pointed out you're still in hot water from the public perspective, as in if somebody calls you out, but if they're wrong, it's a bad call out.
Right. Now here's
but nobody's gonna care. Sorry.
But here's case in point with Corridor Digital, right? Even though it is technically not plagiarism, the four of us agree. I think the four of us agree. It is technically not plagiarism because they have said what the source is for the art style. The public are being influenced by content creators saying, this is plagiarism, this is plagiarism, this is plagiarism. Mm-hmm. Again, I've had conversations with artists that say, like, it's against privacy for these things to, these algorithms to use my art for their things. Like, no, that's not against privacy, right? That might be what's called breaking the intended use, but that's not, it's breaking intellectual property. But the problem is there are no proper laws for intellectual property because it is such a minefield, right? Yes. I have spoken to an actual lawyer about this, and they have been able to advise me in their limited capacity about it. But yeah, it's a minefield about it. So we've spoken about this. We're naturally getting there anyway. Should we talk about the capitalist side of it? There is so much more to this that I want to talk about. There is no chance in hell we're going to get it all covered in half an hour. So this is clearly a part one, right?
Definitely.
gone. A part 2 will come at some point in the future. You know, that's a given. But should we talk about the capitalist side of this? Oh, actually, one final point. So I wanted to say the whole inspiration thing, right? You know, you are inspired by this music and things like that. I think that is a big indication between the difference of AI versus algorithm, where an AI could be inspired, an algorithm can't.
Yeah.
Right? An algorithm just
can
has
only
a
mimic.
data set that it pulls from.
Mm-hmm.
Right? An AI can be inspired to utilize that art style, whereas Joey's like, but
that's one for part 2, or like a private conversation.
Okay.
Xeno, I got some stuff to say about that one.
He feels things. Anyway, right. So the capitalist side of things. I think the biggest concern out there is that this is going to destroy jobs, and you know, people aren't going to have work.
Right. So I would say,
go ahead.
Okay.
The advent of digital video is already doing that and has done that a whole bunch.
Yeah.
I think we're headed that way anyway. I think personally what I'm more concerned about is the overall level of quality with anime that is made with this technique or technique similar to it. Like for example, all the CG in season 3 of Overlord ruined that season for me. And it's not because I hate CG in anime. It's because I hated the way they used it, right? Which it was just clearly like, hey, let's cut some corners. There are anime out there where like CG has been used to like tell stories in ways that like it couldn't otherwise have been, right? And I would like it if this technology is mostly used in that way. But also, like along the same lines, like we were talking about this on stream the other day, like with Ghost in the Shell, initially when they were using CG to do stuff, it was like, that's cool, like it's kind of like cutting edge, or it was for me when I first saw it. I hadn't really seen other stuff that was using CG like that. I was like, that's cool, they're using it to tell a story, like a little bit of a meta, like they're driving a point home, or they're you know, it's an expression. But along those, like with the more recent Ghost in the Shell stuff, like I was just a little while ago, I was watching what is it, Standalone Complex 2049?
2045, yeah. One of those.
2045, excuse me. And I haven't finished it yet, but like the whole thing is CG, and they had so many opportunities to try and use that to tell a more interesting story, and they didn't. It was clear that they used it because that was just the most cost-effective way to make the anime. And I think overall that made for a lower that made that specific series lower quality. Yeah. Same with like Attack on Titan and the Titans in later seasons kind of being, you know, like being mostly CG. I think that a great
I'd say that's the least
a great example,
but
a great example of kind of what I'm after here, and the whole thing about like, I guess, what is anime? Maybe that's been solved on like a larger thing. I've known people that were like, Western animation doesn't count as anime. It doesn't matter how close it matches. If it was made in the West, it's not anime. I don't buy that, but a show that did this really well was back in the day. There was a show that aired on Cartoon Network, if anybody knows it. It's called Code Lyoko, where basically when they were in the real world, it was like it was traditional animation, and then when they were in this like computer world, it was 3D animation. And at the time, I was like, what?
And in both, they had gigantic balloon heads.
Yeah. But I want to see more. I want to see more stuff like that. You know.
I agree entirely with Joey. It's all about application, like how it's applied, because you know a lot of a lot of the mecha stuff that tends to utilize CG environments. I mean, for example, Ultraman, right? Ultraman, the Netflix series, is pretty good, but it's still a bit off-putting, the fact that the characters are CG, right? But if you watch like more recent mecha shows where the mecha are CG, but the rest of the environments and everything are all still hand drawn, it works really, really well. There's one that springs to mind. I just can't remember what it's called. It begins with a K. It's on Netflix. It's been on Netflix for the longest time. But again, it can. I mean, again, intros and outros. The JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, the first 2 seasons. Actually, no, I think all the seasons, all the intros are CG, right? But it's fine. It
works,
right?
yeah.
It works. It's all right to put it there, but to put it in the actual show itself, it's quite off-putting, right? So it's all about application, right? And I think, again, that's where this AI stuff could come in, right? It's all about application, how you use it. Because let's face it, not all CG stuff looks good. Look at X-Arm.
I have a perfect example for that too, yeah.
Go on.
So Shikizakura kind of combines all 3 of these that we're talking about. For the vast majority of it, the characters, everything is CGI, right? And it looks kind of bad, honestly, for a good chunk of it, because the characters, their motions are kind of unnatural. It looks like they're moving through water or something. But for the fight scenes, when they actually put their Kamen Rider outfits on, for lack of a better term, it looks great. It's amazing. And there are actually episodes where they do normal animation style for the regular characters, and then the cool CGI stuff for the actors and for the fight scenes, and it looks so much better than when they're doing the CGI animation for the normal characters. That's sort of what I think you're talking about. Is it's good when it's used as a tool for things that might look better as CGI and not regular style animation, but it's not. It shouldn't necessarily be a replacement for it. Yeah.
I mean, actually, there's one there that's on the panel in front of us. So I'm a spider. So what? Right? All the monsters were CG. The spider was CG where it was appropriate, but where the spider needed to have proper facial animations, proper, they didn't do that because it looked unnatural.
Weird,
right?
Yeah.
So again, when characters are far off in the distance, Goblin Slayer is another brilliant one. They use CG for Goblin Slayer because his armor is so detailed, and they have to maintain that level of detail. They tend to utilize it when he is far away, right? So, but when he's up close and personal, nope, it's all hand drawn, right?
Think about this from one of the most famous first uses of the tech. Disney's Mulan.
Oh, they were going to say Blue Submarine number 6.
No. Disney's Mulan. When the Huns crest the hill and then ride down to the valley, every single one of them is a CG horseman. But when you get close up, they're hand drawn.
The Lion King too, with the wildebeests? Weren't they all CG?
Yes.
Until you got close to them.
I think, until you got close to them.
Yeah.
They mapped all of these distant characters to a CG model, and then played a little algorithms to make sure they didn't crash into each other when they rode down the hill. And that was it. But it still looks stunning from that distance. And then when they flew across it with the camera, where there didn't need to be all that much detail, it really worked. So as a tool for situational use and making big shots and distant shots look a hell of a lot more detailed than they would be normally, great use of it. That's the same thing I want to see for AI usage, or algorithm intelligent usage, is a tool for making those difficult to do things a little easier.
We
because
we had a news story several months back about how they were using or they're trying to use AI to create background images for like landscapes and stuff for anime. And that's I think I mentioned that earlier in the podcast, but I think that's sort of where you're going with this.
That's exactly the kind of tool. See, you mentioned at the start of this section, what's going to be the consequence of this? What is going to be the spread of this? What is it going to do to the industry?
Mhm.
And I can see this making it an absolute roller coaster, because on the one hand, small studios will now have access to tools that can let them do big things.
Mhm.
On the other hand, big studios are going to see a way to downsize. And all of the really talented and professionally trained animators and artists that have their hands in this are going to just be thrown into chaos, because some studios will want them, some studios won't. Some studios will think that they're just a way of operating the software. Other studios will pay big bucks just to get the correct animators on a project and have the higher quality.
May I jump in?
It's just absolutely.
I feel that we don't necessarily know that to be true. This is all speculation. I personally think that the jobs that are online... What?
Look at how many CGI artists they've had to hire for movies. I mean, like, yeah, they got rid of some crew that made practical effects and stuff, but they replaced it with this massive list of CGI artists.
Not just necessarily that, but I feel that there's going to be a turn point where it's not going to be a short period of time. We're talking something that's going to span a few years, right?
Absolutely.
It always
could
does.
Even get close to it. Could get close to a decade, where effectively this new technology comes in, and the jobs that it's going to impact first in the worst way is the between animation. Sorry, the between.
Yes.
See, I would think background artists first, because that's like still image. Okay,
no. Hold on. The worst way, right?
Okay.
Because we can see that, these things like Midjourney can do static images quite well. You could just hit the refresh button enough times until eventually it lands on something that you like. Now, the big thing with the between frame animators is that it's not going to comprehend how this works. And there's a brilliant video.
Oh.
We need to make sure that this is in the description below. Like, this is, life or death for us, guys. I can't remember what it's called. I know it's in the conversation between you and I, Joey. Oh God, what was it? It's smoother animation does not equal better animation.
Oh yes.
By Noodle.
Yes.
Right? Now, when this first came out, I was all over this because I am sick to death of these shitty smart TVs that do shitty interpolated frames or between frames that make 12 frames per second look like ass frames per second, right? So, and that's what most anime's on and things. But regardless of that, at some point in time, we're going to have better software out there, better algorithms to do these between frames, but we're going to need between frame animators to fix the mistakes and then re-render new between frames. There may be a case where it's just like, I can't bloody do this at all. I don't know how to actually do these between frames. I need you to just do it for me, Mr. Animator Man, right? Joey clearly wants to say something.
Yeah, to be clear, I just kind of want to reiterate that you put a speculative time frame at the beginning of this statement.
Yeah.
To be clear, I think that a motion tweening tool, an AI or an algorithmic motion tweening tool, will come about in the same way that a background tool has. It's just a matter of time.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's going to take longer for it to be. It doesn't
Good.
need an artist's oversight.
Because backgrounds are so
Yeah.
easy, that's something that they can do without much oversight.
Now here's the big. So what's the difference of doing that then, Xeno? I think the big thing here is that if you are a smart animation studio, you will not get rid of your between frame animators. What you would do instead is potentially look to promote them to maybe low fidelity keyframes and and instead of high, just all keyframes, right? So low fidelity keyframes where it's a simple keyframe to do. And you would potentially look to go, right, well, now we've got one project that's being assisted by AI. You will have a second project that's running concurrently, right? That will go out a different season from Project A. So Project B will come out the next season. Project C will come out the following season. But again, we're also going to have studios that do the stupid thing, aka X-Arm, right? And they will downsize their staff. The animation will look like fucking ass. And do you know what's going to happen?
Yes.
No one's going to watch it. And the studio will go out of business. Right?
That's what I was getting at, yes. Because as Nasuth kind of made clear with the whole thing about attribution, you know, who's going to care? Why should I? There are people that will be at the top of the list doing the hiring and firing that see an opportunity to get rid of people that they don't understand the jobs of. And that's been the case. We've seen that happen for 100 years now in every single walk of life. So that's why I said this is going to be a roller coaster. Some parts of the industry are going to be completely thrown into turmoil, and we're going to see a huge shake-up in the different types of studio that do survive versus the ones that make the stupid choices.
Mm-hmm. What was the studio last year that like it just laid off like almost the entirety of their animators? I forget like what studio that was, but I remember like it made such a stink when they did. But I forget what studio it was.
Was it an American studio or a like a Japanese or Chinese one?
It was. No, it was an American studio.
I don't know.
I totally forget. Well, if you want, I can.
I mean, it happens all the time with video game studios. Let's be clear on that.
I'd be interested to know that. I think it might have some affiliation with Disney. I can't remember. I know Netflix.
Yeah, Netflix has been laying off people for a while.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't Netflix specifically. It was like an animation studio specifically that like stuff gets. They have stuff on Netflix, but I mean,
back in January, Disney cut 7,000 jobs.
But we're not quite sure if those actual.
Yeah. Anyway,
you know, I know. Back in January, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft laid off a truck ton of developers.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, well, this has just completely changed the market for everyone. So, but yeah, I mean, it's all about like how you're going to utilize this technology, whether or not you're smart about it or whether or not you're going to screw it up. Joey actually has a really good story he spoke about during the live stream, the Gunpla live stream we did the other day. Are you okay to tell that story, Joey?
I don't remember what story you're referring to.
The Deborah one.
Yeah, so just really quick. When Xeno and I were streaming the other day, he was talking about automation and like how he would prefer to like apply it and stuff. And full disclosure, I used to at a previous job, I used to build a lot of animation for kind of like small and medium businesses and stuff. Automation. Did I say animation? I'm sorry.
Did.
There was I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and I was thinking like, okay, cool, like we're helping people, right? So like there was like, for example, this was like a real person that I like really knew and really spoke to. She had just basically gotten an internship in a field that she wanted to work in for like a small company.
For the sake of this story, they are referred to as Deborah, but that's not their actual name.
Yeah. Right. So she got a job in a field that she really wanted to be in. Is it what?
Sorry, it's an old Dragnet. You know, the stories are real, but the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we built some automation for the business, and my thinking was, and I worked very closely with Deborah. My thinking was like, cool. So like, well, and you know, kind of some of the higher ups that we spoke with kind of mirrored a little bit of what we thought was going to happen. But my thinking was like, and Deborah's was as well, was you know, we'll build some automation to like take some of Deborah's like workload away, and then the company will be able to put her on to actually working in the industry, doing the things that she wants. She'll have a chance to learn and like move forward with her life. And no, we built some automation, they fired her, and that was that. Like I cost somebody their job, and in retrospect, I think there was that like had a huge impact on like how I approach like the ethics of like automation and stuff. Yeah. I do think there's a lot of people are making the argument right now with a lot of things kind of around the whole like AI thing. A lot of people are making the argument right now that this technology is going to steal jobs, and that's unavoidable and you know, like it's been happening since the Industrial Revolution. I see the point, I agree, but also I think it can be handled better. That's like across the animation industry and everything else, and I think ultimately what it's down to is it's down to the values of the people that make the decisions about how a company's money is spent. That's that.
May I throw in here that if you do anything computer related, you cost the job of people that manually entered data into a paper-based system, right?
Well, there's even...
It wasn't your intent, but that's what's happened.
Even in like the fast food industry and the grocery industry, we're seeing more and more automation. With like groceries, you've got self-checkout, and fast food is getting to the point that you don't need a cook or a cashier. It can do it all automatically. And yeah, it's gonna be crazy in the next 20, 30 years.
But the big thing with automation is that yes, it will kill off jobs,
but in theory,
but
it
will also bring in new jobs, right? You know, people like here's a big thing, right? A lot of these services, right? A lot of these algorithms that exist out there, they are known as SaaS, software as a service, right? You pay a subscription to this service, and then Bob's your uncle, right? Now, there's one software as a service that I know Joey certainly knows, and Nasuth in passing. It's called Docker, right? It has been utilized by a lot of people, but in the beginning of 2020, it may have been sometime in 2019, but they turned around and basically said, right, unless we get a substantial donation, we're going to have to shut up shop, right? And the large part of the problem was that there are so many services out there that utilize Docker. If Docker went away, well, they would be fucked. They would have to rekindle all of their infrastructure. And we have seen this with other services. Joey and I know of a story, unfortunately, NDA, we can't talk about it. But, there's a startup, right, that specialize in X service, and they've turned around to us and said, yeah, we can't facilitate this anymore. You're going to have to go use something else. Perchance you want to go use this other startup. And we're like, screw you. You can take your startup and shove it. Because, what's going to stop you from doing this again? Right? Yeah. So if a SaaS, if a software as a service, like Midjourney, like DALL-E, like ChatGPT, for whatever reason, goes away, right? It falls victim to the Google graveyard, so to speak. These studios are screwed, right? So that could be part of the downfall for a lot of these services. Would companies be willing to jump into bed with these services if there's a chance that service is not going to be there tomorrow?
I think it's worth mentioning, just very quickly, that so I think there is also a little bit of a risk, and I say a little bit, that, say, animation studios might struggle financially as a result of like bad decisions that they make with regard to like how their resources are handled. Talking specifically about animators and generative art and stuff like that. Like, if there is a studio that begins to develop a track record of like using generative tech to like cut corners, then I don't think that in general, I don't think that consumers will respond well to that, but I don't think they'll respond so poorly that it'll put that company out of business. And even if it does, like, what will arise to fill the void there? And I would argue that what would arise to fill the void most likely would be like independent creators who are now empowered by basically by animation becoming easier to make. And then with that in mind, it starts to get normalized, and then larger studios begin to feel like, okay, we can get away with this by, we'll just throw some compute time at it and we're good. Because like, this was made by one guy in his garage and like that was a success, so surely this is going to do well. And then I don't know. I think Thaylien had it right. I think it was Thaylien that said that it's going to be a roller coaster, I think.
On that note, can we pause for a sec?
Yep. Right. Okay then. So, we spent nearly an hour and a half on this.
Oh my god! Did we really?
Yeah, seriously.
Take off the beginning, more like an hour 20 minutes, but
This is to be expected kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
I think realistically, we are all for the use of these algorithms, these
the responsibilities.
AIs, right?
Algorithmic intelligence.
No.
Because it's foiled again.
Right, we're all up for these algorithms to be used for animation, but they need to be used as assistants, not a replacement for actual animators.
At least for now, until the technology gets like, some type of better.
Yeah, I have heard people that have their jobs as 3D artists have been devolved into, let's just type in a prompt and get a 3D model out of some, a renderer. And I know 3D animators that have just like devolved into, right, well, let's just take this 3D model, rig it up to this predefined animation set, and job's done.
Yeah.
So it's all about the application, and where some studios would turn around and just go flat out, hey, let's just get rid of these job roles, there are some studios that are going to be very keen to keep those job roles. You just kind of need to find those studios.
I think it's also worth considering, like, if you're someone who, like, you think your job might be on the chopping block, and I'm not just talking about animators, I'm talking about just in general. Yeah. It's important to consider like what your tastes and stuff are, in like what do you like about your job, because like there's an argument that like, oh, just typing something into a prompt is easier than it certainly is easier, but like that may not be what you signed up for. You may not like that. And was it Don Hertzfeldt, I think, is quoted like he said something along the lines of like, yeah, so that how like Pop-Tarts made all those rip-off commercials where they like ripped off his style of animation.
No.
Initially, yeah. Are you familiar with the commercials? I can send them.
Wait, is that how Rejected ended up coming about? Because he was like,
no. So he made Rejected, and then somebody saw it. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Well, actually, yes, I don't know if he made Rejected first, but like he was already committed to that style.
Yeah. Rejected wasn't his first film.
Yeah, so later he was approached about animating for like those Pop-Tarts commercials, the crazy good, those ones. And he turned him down, and when asked why, he said that it's kind of akin to being somebody that like loves going hiking and then like taking a job to just like stand in front of a sandwich shop with a sign, it's like kind of a perversion of the thing that you want to do. And I could see the same thing being true for people whose jobs may be getting made easier sometime soon.
No, I can appreciate that. But I can certainly say in my line of work, I would like more help. A lot more help. Automate more of my job, please. But as a final point, one thing I want to highlight, there will be links in the description below. There are tools out there that are very good at detecting whether or not an image is AI or not. And, you know, I've used it in the past where... I was playing with it earlier today where I took one of the you know, as I spoke about the Mid-Journey concepts, and I threw it in there, and it was just like, it pretty instantly detected, yeah, this is Mid-Journey, right? And then I took the thumbnail of the latest Notice Me Senpai, and it went, not a clue, I don't think this is AI art. And I'm like, yes.
Nice.
So we can say now that a sentient scarf is actually like real people.
Aww.
Yeah.
Only like real
Anyway,
people, though.
so I think that is as much as we can cover in this part 1. A part 2 will come at some point in time. You know, and any questions you have, we will more than likely address, not only in next week's episode, but we'll come back to in the part 2 as well. So, it is
I'll see if I
time...
can debate anybody in the comments section if you'd like.
Okay.
Only if there's time. Only if
Move
there's
on
time.
to the supporter question. So, right. So, Nasuth is Atomic says, before I read out the supporter questions, I just want to thank everyone who's watching or listening to our podcast thus far. It means the world to us. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And hey, if you want us to read out any of your questions, considering joining the Patreon, as little as $1 helps with the Notice Me Senpai show. It genuinely does, you know. So,
No self-interest in that one, then. That's
Oh, I forgot to. Haha, I forgot to. Wait, I thought I had a second one.
it's in it further down.
Oh my God!
The...
No, that's okay. I don't know how I messed this up, but okay, sure.
Can I just read it verbatim, or
Is a sentient scarf like real people?
I don't know
I'm
anymore.
starting to question this now.
I don't know anymore.
Right.
There we go. Here we go. So
Right, today's topic is the expanding use of AI. In that spirit, if you could put your brain in a robot, but a robot brain would also be put in your body, would you do it? I mean, what kind of level of robot are we talking here?
Yeah, are we talking like, can I put my brain in a Gundam? Because if so,
Can I
like,
put my
who
brain
gives
in
a
a 2D?
shit what, like,
yes, but then the butter robot from Rick and Morty gets that brain gets put in your body.
It's fine. Its
Oh my
purpose is to
God.
serve butter. You know.
sign me up right now.
Yeah. I mean,
End this meat flesh of mine.
I will say, people need to read, and I do mean read, Battle Angel Alita.
Yeah, I need
Right.
to.
Okay. So, moving on. Atomic Zrugal in Shadow asks, did learning with Duolingo help you at all for your trip to Japan? This is more of a Loz question.
Well, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, he's not here. I
Did
think it
he
help
seem
him
to?
because
Yeah.
I think he was able to pick up on words a lot more and things like that. He could spot things quite easily. So
That's good.
So the next thing is, what's the best supporter question you've responded to? Wrong answers only.
Any from me?
None from Thaylien.
None from me.
Anyway. And then Rick Hughes plus coffee equals Shade Etta. What is your favorite scene from Bobo 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 Bobo.
Bobo.
Never seen it. I know Joe's a huge fan.
There's 7. It's what is it? Bo.
I just remember
My
the old,
my favorite scene.
Cartoon Network commercials for it, where they would say it.
My favorite scene was where he said, "I'm boboing out," and that's my favorite scene. Absolutely,
Wait,
totally
am I the only
boboing
one
right
that's
now.
Not watch this. Okay, fine. Right, and that is it for.
I've mostly not watched it. We'll say I haven't watched it. We'll be in the same.
I am familiar
in the
enough
same
with
boat.
it to know that I was making a stupid joke about the
Okay.
Morbius movie.
Okay.
I'm morbing out.
Right.
Time to
Morbing
morb.
time. Right. So move it. Comments. Right. So first, the comments from Kanpai News. Zruel says, "Ha ha ha ha! I just heard about the tax game today, and I was hoping you guys might cover it."
That was the one with the visual novel style and the anime girlfriend that helped you prepare your taxes. Yeah.
Yeah, but it only works for single people as opposed to family.
I'm fairly certain that only single people would have got that game in the first place anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. Edward Paddock says, "Bad Appleseed is indeed bad." Oh God, I hate them so much. Bad. First one in
The CGI ones.
the late 80s or early 90s would be really good. But...
Yeah.
And now from last week's cast episode, Edward Paddock says, "Speaking of foot and drink, the French word for foot, hide, is the origin."
Yeah.
No, I'm saying pied. Is the origin of the word pie. French workmen would bring the leftovers from the previous night's supper, baked in dough, and because of the size and shape, they called it a foot. So work with them for lunch.
To work with them for lunch.
Oh, to work with them for lunch. All right. Right. So apparently, in the absence of laws, Xeno can be right sometimes.
Rarely.
I mean,
We'll give him a pat on the head occasionally.
let's just say that was a mistake, okay? Right. Zrugel says Hiroshima sounds incredible and profound. It was.
Really does.
I will forever be sympathetic to people who get lost in a foreign country. I got lost both times when I went to Canada for TennoCon.
Aww.
But it's Canada. That's English speaking.
No,
Thaylien, they don't speak English. They speak Canadian. Very different. Lots of A's and boots.
They do have 2 official.
Yeah, they've got French.
Languages.
Yeah.
Anyway, Zrugel also says, "I think that food was Wagyu beef." I don't think it was Wagyu beef. I know what you're talking about. The sushi. I don't think it was. I think it was another cut of beef. I just can't remember what. Someone compliment Xeno for his posing in that photo. Watched an Akihabara tour video from the other
Compliment
channel.
laws.
Yeah. Watched a Akihabara tour video from another channel. It was really awesome, neat. There's a free Fushimi walk sim on Steam. Steam. Sorry, god damn it. It's gorgeous. That was widely enjoyable and didn't at all seem like an hour and a half. I did check out the Nostalgia VR room. It was cool, but I wasn't impressed. There was actually anime playing in the room.
There wasn't actually
anime playing in the room. There was just TV and radio that you could turn down or off.
Couldn't turn down or off.
Couldn't turn. I can't read. Okay, so let's just.
That's sad.
Pretty picture
That's
time.
sad.
Pretty picture time. Let's get in memes.
I
That's
think it's
very
time for
sad.
the memes.
I'm sad to know that the because they said they were gonna put me anime in there on the TV, but I guess I don't know. Anyway, memes. Yes.
Anyway, memes. So all these memes come from Reddit. I assume this is Nasuth's first one. But if you want to see more memes, you can go to twitter.com/Kanpai_cast and you can memes daily.
Daily memes all over your face. Anyway, he will never be in every anime. Makes weird noise. Indeed, he is in every anime.
Yeah.
Every anime.
That he is.
when you drop a baby and catch it on the first bounce. So this is the power of Ultra Instinct. This is why you don't mess with this cat. This is exactly why you do not mess with this cat. Friends, so how different are your tastes? My tastes. I don't actually know what the second one is, but
you got Ginger Yeeture on the left.
But yeah, I assume that the second one is probably something I would also like. Japanese meme.
Yeah.
And finally, what I see, what my cat sees.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right, so on to Thaylien's? Yeah, Thaylien's first meme.
Are you sure this bounty isn't for you? Wanted, Vash the Stampede. Description: blonde hair, red coat, metal arm, reward. This is for the last time I'm a state alchemist.
Well,
Nice.
Remember, Twilight, this is for the mission. This is for the mission. This is for the mission. Bipod was created in 1914. People in 1913.
Never forget. Oh my god.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Over here, we're doing the math now, and nothing, not even that lolly on the other page, is sexier than math.
Isn't that the music from
Crisis. It's Crisis.
Oh god. I thought it was
I know
thought it
for a
was-
fact that's Crisis 2. I know that. It's not that I listened to it on the regs. Oh god, that was brilliant. That was fucking.
I could have sworn it was Attack on Titan.
Oh, I
Poor
kinda
Matt,
want you to play it. Can you play that again? I just want that again.
Let's see. Let me go back to this one and then
Yeah.
Over here, we're doing the math now, and nothing, not even that lolly on the other page, is sexier than math.
All right.
According to the internet, he doesn't watch porn, so
Is that legitimately from MatPat? Or
Yes.
is that like.
it has been so heavily memed. I'm just glad I found one of them on the way through.
Lol.
Brilliant.
All right, meme number 5.
I'm not sure you should be calling yourself a maiden, as you'll be 20 soon. Hmm? Well, thanks to you, Senpai, I'm no longer a maiden.
Oh, Joey.
Correctly answered.
What the fuck?
Uh-huh. Oh god, it just keeps going.
Oh my god, what the fuck
But
even?
is it wrong, though?
No, it's not wrong. It is
Okay.
not wrong. Right. On to Xenos.
Okay.
Say the Xeno.
Sensei, would you punish me for something I didn't do? Of course not! I didn't do my assignment.
Lol.
Listen here, you
Lol.
little shit.
Yep.
I need to watch that sometime.
America or something. I don't know. I've never been.
I have no idea what that's from, but it's amazing.
Is the Great Pretender.
It is also how America is. Yes, it is true. Just gun party every day.
Next. Losing 100 pounds in America. Losing 100 pounds in the UK.
Oh god. I think I know what movie this is from too. fucking Bollywood movies are incredible.
I'm pretty sure that was the Witch from the
Well
3
found.
intro. Yep. My next one.
Oh.
100
Oh.
Watching food in the microwave being heated. 8 seconds have passed. Oh dear. Right.
It is final one.
It's April 2nd. Why is my life still a joke?
Oh my god.
Right. That is it.
That one hit a little too close to home there.
Well, the aqua one.
Yeah.
Right, so that is it for this week's episode. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Next week, we'll be doing the winter 2023 year thingy brain broke review. And yeah, so that is it. Time to... Oh, actually, special thank you, Joey, for coming and joining us on this episode. Also...
Where can people check you out, Joey?
On the internet.
Oh my god, I forgot people could check me out. So there's
at your
YouTube,
local library.
YouTube, yeah, at your local library. I'll be there. I'll be doing a stream signing. Just bring a stream with you, and I'll sign it
keep
for
him
you.
in the fiction section.
Every second you're not running, he's only getting closer.
So, what I make YouTube videos and music and stuff. YouTube.com/JoeyZero, or Twitch.tv/JoeyZeroTV. Sure. If you want like links and stuff, I would recommend just jump in the Discord. You can find it at either of those links, and I'll put links in the places for you. Yeah,
Thanks.
we'll leave the light on for you. I think that's how that.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing.
Right, so that is it for this week's episode. Thank you very much. Time to bottoms up and Kanpai!
Kanpai.